What's up, guys? Welcome back to The Question, where you have the questions and I have the answers. And today I'm answering the question, are you sex repulsed? But before we get started, please remember to like, comment, share if you're new. I try to make videos every Wednesday unless I get distracted or I am at work. So with that being said, let's get on with the video. So originally I was going to make a video. I just finished the Lucifer TV series. I was going to make a video criticizing that because I have heavy opinions on it. But then one of my friends asked me the question, are you sex repulsed? And for those of you who don't know, I am asexual. And that means that I feel little to no sexual attraction. For me, it's I feel no sexual attraction. However, if you know me in real life or you've talked to me at all, you know that even though I am asexual and I experience no sexual attraction, I make a lot of sex jokes. I'm very outwardly sexual, I very play into that like hypersexual kind of trope of personality. And so that confuses a lot of people, especially when we start talking about like me and my friend slash partner and what kind of stuff that we do in that relationship. And so how it would come up is they're talking about like, oh, well, do you ever think about having sex with them? And I'm like, well, I think about it, but like, I don't actually want to do it, you know? And they're like, oh, well, are you sex repulsed? And so I'm going to talk about that because I think even though we as an asexual community have come up with this spectrum between like sex repulsed, the sex positive slash sex favorable, I think it's way more nuanced than just like a sliding scale spectrum. And I think that's true with all spectrums that the queer community has come up with. But I think once again it needs to be reiterated, especially when we have more, I'm not going to say more marginalized, but like smaller subsets of the queer community like the asexual community, which often get overlooked or don't get studied as much or thought about as much. So before we get started answering the actual question of am I specifically sex repulsed, let's do a background on what asexuality is and how we got to this kind of question. Asexuality is, as I mentioned, little to no sexual attraction. However, actually, it's hard because you're trying to define something based off of the lack of it. So sexual attraction, to my understanding as someone who doesn't experience it, is the urge to be sexual with somebody. Or at least like a specific person. Like you could look at somebody and be like, oh, they're attractive, and like I want to fuck them kind of way. It doesn't mean that you can't find them pretty or aesthetically pleasing or sensually attractive. And I think that's something that a lot of allos don't understand. Not just like cishet people, but even allos who are gay or bi or any other type of queer don't understand that, is that there are different types of attraction you can be to somebody. And not all of it is just sexual, like it's different out, and we experience all of them all the time, but I think it's just like the ace era community that has really actually thought to define each different kind and state that there is an obvious difference. So like platonic attraction is when you really want to be best friends with somebody, but that's about it, you know? Or sensual attraction is you're really like, you want to cuddle, you want to kiss, you want to be like physically intimately close with them, but maybe it's not sexual. And then romantic attraction is that one. I'm still not sure. I'm gonna be honest, I'm also aromantic, not sure on that one. But then a sexual attraction is like, I look at you and I have the urge to like have sex with you. And attraction doesn't equal, as we say, fantasy. It doesn't equal libido or sex drive, or you can still be horny and not be sexually attracted to somebody. Like me personally, I am horny very often. A lot of my asexual friends are horny very often. They watch porn, they masturbate, but they just don't feel like doing it with anybody else. My friends describe it as like, you are a very, very horny person. It just doesn't go anywhere. It just kind of stays contained within you. Yeah. Now for the people who do experience outward, I'm not going to say attraction, but like outward displays of like sensuality, horniness, or sexuality, there is kind of a spectrum that we have come up with and how we relate to sex. Because as we also said, just because you're asexual does not mean you're celibate, because you can have sex without being sexually attracted to somebody, you know, because you can still be horny, you can still have libido, a sex drive. It's like eating something even though you're not hungry. Like, you're not starving, you don't need to eat, but if you enjoy the act of eating or you enjoy the taste of something, you know, it's like if I've just eaten a pizza, I don't need to eat ice cream afterwards because I'm already full from the pizza, but I really like the taste of ice cream and it makes me really happy, so I will eat ice cream if it's offered to me, you know. But it's like, I don't need to have sex, I don't feel like an urge to. But if you like the way that it feels, or you like the act of it, or you like just being that close to somebody, then people can still have sex even if they're not attracted to somebody or like have the urge for it, you know. And that's how we get into this like relational spectrum of sex repulsed to sex positive / sex favorable. And I'll explain some of the terms within that spectrum. So sex repulsed is somebody who not only does not have sex, but maybe even like a little bit turned off by the idea. Like, they're like, ooh, people are disgusting. I never want to like look at people or like touch people. I'm really just good by myself. Like, it makes me really sick even thinking about it. I get really just disgusted by the idea of sex. And there are people in like the center who are kind of like sex neutral or sex indifferent, where they're like, okay, I can talk about sex, I'm really fine with like sexual topics or the idea of sex, and like maybe I wouldn't mind it, but I'm not like really for or against it. Like, it's just there, and if I do it, I do it. It doesn't matter, you know. Like, maybe I'll do it for my partner, or maybe I'll do it because I'm like horny and I have the urge to, and I'm horny and I want to. That doesn't mean that I'm like I don't need it in my life, you know. And there are people who are sex favorable, sex positive, who are like, I, you know, like having sex and I am down to do that, and I will go out of my way to do that even if I'm not actually attracted to the people that I'm having sex with. I just really like the act of sex, and I'm really comfortable around the idea of it. I'm really comfortable around the action of it. And so that's the spectrum that we've come up with. But it's more nuanced, I think, because you're not just experiencing these kinds of attractions and these kinds of feelings like in an isolated incident. And I feel like when we separate out and define different kinds of attraction, like platonic, romantic, sensual, aesthetic, all that kind of stuff, we tend to look like, oh, you can experience one thing at a time, or one thing towards one person at a time. And you don't, because emotions are messy, feelings are messy, we don't understand them. Like, we're trying to, we act like we do, but we really don't. And so it all just gets like messy and entangled, especially on terms of like sexuality and attraction, which are things that have been historically very understudied because of the great taboo that we have on them due to like our relationship with religion and the way that that has influenced our society, you know. So, and even asexuality and the things that is brought up and the way that it's benefited, I think, humanity and society by asking these questions and by really interrogating our relationship to these things and how these processes work, is also severely understudied. And there are more and more academic articles and research being done on asexual individuals and the concepts that asexual individuals have come up with or thought of or noticed, but it's still definitely not making a huge dent in academia today. And the reason I get back, so now we got to the actual question, is they're like, well, are you sex repulsed? If you think about like having sex with somebody, like theoretically, but not practically. And I'm like, well, honestly, I don't know. I think to the most basic definition, I would be, because I think I fall somewhere on the spectrum of sex neutral to sex repulsed in terms of physical, actual, practical sex. Because I do think that, like, I don't know, bodies are disgusting. And I don't have a real urge to put any, I don't know, to touch anybody or to have anybody touch me like that. Like, I'm really sensually attracted to people, and I'm down for like cuddling and kissing and like making out and whatever and napping together. But that's pretty much where it ends. Like, I will fantasize about sexual things because that's just what my brain does, and I like the idea of it. However, I don't think I would actually ever go through with it. And that's something else that I think we're noticing in the community, is that people can have like fantasy or theoretic boundaries that are different than practical boundaries or physical boundaries. You know, like they can be one area on the spectrum and then practically be somewhere else, if that makes sense. Like practically, I'm somewhere between sex neutral to sex repulsed, where it's like, cool, I'll entertain the concept, however, I never actually want to go through with it. Whereas like fantasy wise, I'm very sex positive. I'm very comfortable with the idea of having sex. I'm very comfortable with thinking about me having sex with other people and vice versa. I'm very comfortable with talking about it and discussing it and imagining it. However, actually doing it, that's like a hard no for me. However, also, it can depend, you know, asexuality in itself is a spectrum because it's no attraction to little to no attraction. You know, people who are demisexual or gray sexual who are like, most of the time there's no sexual attraction there, but certain people can trigger that attraction, you know? And you're probably like, well, isn't that how it works most of the time? And you'd be really surprised. I think allos are really horny all the time. And by that, I mean like really like, I don't know. Demisexuality and demi-romanticism, I think, are different because it's not just like this underlying presence, you know? It's like nothing and all of a sudden, boom, it's something and you just don't know what to do. And so I think that's also something that can be hard is that your relationship with people and that whatever like emotional or like emotional intimacy you have with them can also influence how you feel about them on like an attraction level. And so I think it's really hard when we come up with these definitions because when we set something like that, it's like, oh, this is how it is. It's infinite, it's ongoing, it's forever. And we don't really think about how these things can change based off of our experiences. So like, I would say that, you know, arguably I am sex repulsed from an asexual point of view. However, I'm way more comfortable with my partner physically intimately and emotionally intimately than I am with most people. And to me, that's a big step. And so I have a hard time looking at myself being like, oh, I am sex repulsed because I am so comfortable with them physically, sensually wise. But also like talking about sharing my fantasies with them and they'll share their fantasies with me. And it's like something that that's a level of comfort and intimacy and trust that I haven't had before. And so I can't, so like while everybody I think would see me as sex repulsed, I can't technically see myself that way, even though I probably am. And so I think that's something else that is not considered when we make this spectrum or we assign ourselves with these labels, is that labels exist to describe to others what you are. It's for other people to understand you in like a easily like concise manner. However, what we're feeling and what we're experiencing and what goes into these labels is way more fluid and nuanced and ever changing than one label can really define. I hope that taught us something. I really hope that this can be like really beneficial for people in the asexual community or people just in the queer community who want to learn more about asexuality. Because once again, it is something that is overlooked a lot of the time, especially within queer circles, and don't even get me started on like non-queer circles. But I hope that my experience and my insights can be beneficial to people who are either questioning or just who want to learn more about the community or just want to be more inclusive for asexual and aromantic individuals. But yeah, if you have any more questions, please feel free to comment below. If you have any more questions about me and my experience, you have any more questions in general about anything, yeah, feel free to comment below. This is the question. I answer your questions. I hope you have an amazing summer and that you get outside, because at least it's supposed to be 80 degrees today and fairly sunny, which is kind of a rarity here. So I know I am in a dress, my hair is up. We're definitely gonna go outside and have some fun today. So with that being said, so long, thanks for all the fish. Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.